Hey there, it's me, Carolina, your alcohol-free life coach and author of the book Euphoric, Ditch Alcohol and Gain a Happier, More Confident You. And I have so much to share with you today because I was working with a client and really getting deep into some of the incredible benefits of going alcohol-free. And one thing sometimes we don't recognize is how much time we get back. And it's so hungry as a society. We always feel so time poor. Everyone wishes they would had more time. Everyone wishes that they had more energy and time in their day to do the things that they want. And it's like we're always running around between so many different priorities in our modern lives. And if we feel like if we could just slow down, if we could just have more time, I feel like so many people would feel like their answers to their solutions and problems would be there for them. And, if you ever feel time hungry, if you ever feel like there's just not enough time in the day to get what you want to get done, and you're really struggling to make it all work, some of the most beautiful gifts that you can get when changing your relationship with alcohol is finding more time. And not just more time that, is spent feeling listless or bored or with low energy, but really motivated time. Time to really work on things that matter the most to you and do things that really serve your soul. And I have to tell you right now, I'm really experiencing this myself too. So I personally changed my relationship with alcohol 4 years ago. And so sometimes, you get so used to a new normal that it's hard to even remember what that newness felt like to go alcohol free and to regain all that time. But personally in my life right now, I have decided to cut out TV. So I was, normally watching TV probably almost every night, probably a show or two at least. And I just felt like I had a full day of work and then I still had to sit down and watch TV. Like it started becoming the opposite of relaxation for me. And I was like, you know what? I don't really like this. I haven't felt very comfortable about how much TV I watch for a long time. Kind of like the same thing that happens with alcohol. And so I decided to take a break from watching TV. And one of the most immediate gifts I can recognize from making that choice is the time I'm getting. So much more present, so much more mindful time. And I think it's the coolest gift that you can also get from going alcohol free or taking a break from alcohol. I mean, seriously, if you go just one evening that you usually would have drank during and you don't drink that night, think of all the things that you could do instead, all the things that you have to do with your time. And even as someone who has a lot of responsibilities or as a mom or a lot to do around the house, it still opens up so much more time because you're not as exhausted. You're not running around so much. You have the emotional capacity to deal with the things that are thrown at you. And with the gift of time, sometimes we don't realize that our lives are so short and we really one day will wake up and all be 90 years old. And I think time is one of the most meaningful things that we can really, really appreciate and get really, really intentional with how we use our time. So imagine that you had, 20 extra hours a week. Like, what would you do with that time? 20 extra hours a week, and you had the high energy and motivation with that extra time. So it wasn't like sluggish or lazy time. You didn't feel like super tired. You actually felt like you were super energized and you had 20 extra hours a week. What could you do with your time? And I wonder what that kind of spurs in you. Does it spur, ideas maybe for new hobbies? Have you ever always wanted to try something like learning guitar or maybe learning how to tango dance? Maybe you've always wanted to learn how to do like karate or taekwondo or maybe running like a marathon or something like that. Maybe you've always wanted to write, maybe like write your book or short stories. Maybe you've always wanted to learn a new language. Maybe you've always wanted to complete some kind of house project around the house, or maybe you've always wanted to do a new creative endeavor in your life. Think about what 20 hours of extra time would do to your week when you have that high energy and you have that motivating space to want to accomplish new things. It can be super, super profound. And when you take away alcohol, you're not just taking away the time that you would have spent drinking. So, for most people that I work with, alcohol often isn't something that we fall into and do every day, all the time. That is definitely a very severe addiction to alcohol. But most people find that they're not drinking every single hour of the day. It's really like a nighttime routine, and it could be only a few days a week. And so when you think about it objectively, you're like, well, the time I'll get back from drinking is only a few hours. It's not like that much of my time. But we often forget about how much other time alcohol takes up in our lives. So first of all, yes, there is the time that you actually drink and you get buzzed or you get drunk, and you can't do anything else with that time. Like when I was buzzed, I couldn't journal, I couldn't read, I couldn't go work out, definitely not. I couldn't really do anything. I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't go run an errand. I couldn't do something enjoyable. I was kind of stuck being buzzed or drunk. Like that was all I could do. Honestly, when I felt buzzed or drunk, there was very few options for me. I could drink more, I could watch TV, or I could go to sleep. That's it. Like that's all I had to do. And especially if I were to drink like earlier in the day, like maybe for a beer festival or something like that, the whole rest of the night was a wash. Like there was nothing that would have happened productive after that. And so yes, you do get that time back. But then imagine also the next morning. You wake up and you actually feel incredible. You got all of the sleep you needed. You feel rested. You're not wasting any time feeling sluggish or exhausted or frazzled. All of your senses are there and you wake up feeling really amazing. And then you aren't spending any of this time feeling unwell, and you're also not spending any time recriminating yourself. Spending all that time feeling ashamed for the drinking you did, or spending the time feeling regretful, or like you said something stupid, or like you said or did something out of character, or anything like that. You're not also chastising yourself for breaking a promise to yourself. You're not telling yourself, oh, you failed again, you drank more than you wanted to, you broke a rule to yourself. You're not recriminating yourself. You're not blaming yourself. You're not shaming yourself. Think of how much time that stuff takes up. It takes up a lot of mental space. It takes up a lot of the chatter that we have in our brains. And now there's another level of it too. You also get rid of the mental gymnastics. So it's not just recrimination that we have around alcohol. It's also the rumination, the constant rumination of should I or should I not? Should I, how much should I drink tonight? Should I go out tonight? Should I not? Oh, I have that presentation tomorrow. Should I go to the store and get some wine? Should I go to happy hour with my friends? It's this constant chatter in our brain to try to regulate and moderate this alcohol in our lives. And it takes up so much mental space. I like to share that I started about, 8 years ago now. 8 years ago now, I started this spreadsheet where I would literally list how many drinks I had every day. And I would go in and I would log in the next morning and write down how many drinks I had. And the reason why I was doing this was because I was trying to drink less. I was trying to moderate my drinking and trying to come under some elusive number every week. And I almost always failed. And, with that level of intention, with that level of analysis, think of how much brain space that was taking up for me. They say that the human mind is really good at solving any problems you present in front of it. So when you're constantly trying to drink less, or you're constantly trying to, make excuses or break promises, or tell yourself how much you deserve a treat, or tell yourself that today's the day you're going to stick to it, all of that chatter in your brain is something that your brain's constantly focusing on. And so think about it. Like you could be Einstein. You could literally be the person who is going to invent the greatest next thing in our world. You could be an incredible thought leader. You could be like an incredible business owner. You could write a book. You could be an author. You could be an artist. You could be all these incredible things. But instead of letting your brain focus on all that cool stuff, your brain is only focused on this question of alcohol. Like what a waste for a beautiful brain. What a waste for like the potential that we all have. And yet I spent so much of my brain power being obsessed over, will I drink? Will I not drink? How many will I have? I'll only have 2. Oh, I had more than 2. Like it was this constant thing in my life. And so when you let go of the time that you're buzzed and drunk, when you let go of the time that you're recovering from drinking the day before, when you let go of the time for recriminating yourself because you're not proud of your behavior, and you let go of the time that you're spending ruminating on alcohol, whether you will drink, making rules for yourself, all this stuff, saying you'll do better. Whoa, that's a lot of time freedom you get. There's a lot of empty space you create in your brain. So it's not just the physical time you get back, it's also this mental time you get back. Because your brain is now capable of focusing on other things, on other creative projects or endeavors you might have in your life. And so I personally went out and started a lot of new hobbies. I tried a lot of different new things because I had all this time freedom. All the things that I said I wanted to try one day, I actually finally did because I wasn't, feeling like, oh, I never have time. I'm too busy. I've got work. I have to drink. I have to wake up and recover. It was just, I had this time freedom. And a lot of my clients will do the same thing. It's so fun to hear from them what new hobbies and interests they have. But some of the things that I've heard my clients really get into is like pottery classes, going to writers' workshops, going to windsurf, learning how to do aerial yoga, learning how to box, doing photography, like all this really cool stuff that starts to take up that empty time that you can now use to discover what you're really passionate about and find something that feels really fulfilling to you and is this new sense of fun and new sense of meaning that you get. Because trust me, it's not a glass of wine at the end of the day that's fun. It's when we create our own fun. It's when we're active participants in creating our own fun and are actually exploring the world and our gifts and our talents. And that can be so much more fulfilling and more meaningful than found in a glass of wine. So the time that you'll save by taking a break from alcohol, literally, I would guess at least 20 hours a week. And that time isn't just extra time that you have feeling, bleh. It's actual productive, high energy, high motivating time. Because you start to believe that there's so much more that's possible for you. When you get out of your comfort zone when changing your relationship with alcohol, it slowly starts to open the doors to so many other things, so many other possibilities for you, so many ways of exploring what you like. Like I said, those hobbies are really cool to start exploring, old interests, old passions, but maybe even, a new creative pursuit. Like I found the time to finally write my book. I was 6 years old when I first decided I wanted to be an author. I was a big reader. I was obsessed with books. I used to read all the babysitter books and all those kids' books, and then I started reading more serious literature and novels when I was in middle school and high school. I loved reading and I loved books. I'm obsessed with books, obsessed with authors. Today I read upwards of 60 to 90 books every single year, and I had this dream on my heart to write a book one day. And I used to write. I used to be what I would call a writer. When I was in high school and even in middle school, I used to write short stories. I would write poems. I would journal a lot. I even wrote plays. The other day I found this play that I had written probably in middle school, and I was like, whoa, I made this whole thing up. And it's amazing when I see that my writing completely dried up, completely trickled out when I became a drinker. When I went to college and I really started drinking, routinely, I completely stopped writing. And I just never expressed myself. And every single year for New Year's in my 20s, I'd have this resolution. Please write more. I want you to write more. I would love for you to write this novel. And I had all these ideas and stuff like that, but every single year I never wrote more than a paragraph. I really didn't. I never picked up writing again. And I just felt doomed, and I felt like, I guess it's just not in the cards for me to ever be an author. It's just too hard. I just don't have it within me. And I gave up. And it wasn't until I took a break from alcohol that I was given all this new fresh time, but also this new fresh perspective that, well, I could spend 15 minutes extra waking up a little early just to write. And that's what I started. I started first with journaling a lot and really working through my relationship with alcohol. But I really started after that with just telling myself, why don't you just wake up a little earlier and write for 15 minutes every morning or every weekday morning, because obviously the weekends can be a little bit more, a little more fun stuff in them. So I committed to writing for 15 minutes most mornings. And I didn't have to be perfect. I didn't have to do it every single morning or else I fall off the wagon. I just committed to making it somewhat consistent. And it seriously wasn't that long until I had a 65,000 word manuscript. And that's the normal size of a book or a novel. And I couldn't believe it. I wrote it pretty quickly. And today, 4 years later, with all the little processes that happen, every single baby step that happens with writing a book, getting a book agent, writing a book proposal, getting a publisher, getting a book deal, getting the marketing, I'm so happy that I actually have my book coming out, Euphoric, Ditch Alcohol, and Gain a Happier, More Confident You. Now, it's slightly different from that first draft I wrote that long ago, but this book has really been years in the making. And it's just one of those passions and one of those dreams that I'd always had, but really put on the back burner of my life and didn't think was going to be possible for me as a drinker. And I didn't recognize that all I needed to do was achieve that dream was to take a break from alcohol, was to renegotiate my relationship with alcohol and really look into it. And I'm just so proud of myself that happened. And I really fundamentally believe that if I could make this happen, you could make this happen. So if you had this gift of time, if you were suddenly blessed with 20 extra hours a week where you felt really motivated and passionate about what you're doing, what would you do? What things would you incorporate into your life? How would you like to spend that extra time? And if you're still, in a relationship with alcohol right now, you might be really surprised to see how much time you could gain by taking a break. I mean, even just experimenting with 1 or 2 nights without drinking will kind of show you how much free time we all really have. I think even the busiest of us, who just do 1,000 things, and bless your heart when you're one of those people who just have a zillion responsibilities in your life, if you still have time to drink, or if you still have time to watch TV, that does mean that you can find that extra free time in your life and in your schedule. And because you're not spent any time with the ruminating or the recriminating or the mental gymnastics or the time just being buzzed, it actually gives you so much more free time than you thought. So like I said earlier, personally, I'm re-experiencing all of this because I decided to stop watching TV, and I have just this new awareness and this new wonder with all of the free time I have. I really felt that obviously when I took my break from alcohol, and I'm re-experiencing it again with this new habit change, and it's just incredible. Like when it's 6 p.m., I have 4 hours until it's time to go to bed of just doing so many different things. I could work a little bit more. I could read a book. I could go out and work out. I could go do something totally fun, like go on a hike or watch the sunset. I go out to dinner. There's just so much room in my life now. And it's not just the physical time you get, it's also the mental time, because your brain isn't somewhere else. Your brain is actually present and absorbing what's happening in front of you. I mean, that's all what we want, right? I think meditation and mindfulness get so popular these days because we all just want that presence. We want to really feel like we are grasping and appreciating every moment of life. And I think, obviously taking a break from alcohol is one of the fastest ways to regain that time. And also understanding that this is a really exciting process for you to discover how you want to use the time you have on this planet. Because you get out of a routine, you get out of a status quo, it's like you almost wake up. And when you wake up, you can become a lot more intentional about what you do want the most on this planet Earth, and start creating it and start building it and start using your extra beautiful, beautiful time and mental energy on the things that light you up the most. Last night I said I'm not watching TV, and my husband and I played charades. And it was ridiculous because, one, we never do that, and it wasn't even a formal game of charades. I was just like, hey, I'm going to act out some movies and I want you to guess them. And I was just super silly, and we just laughed so hard. And we played it for an hour and a half, and it was just ridiculous. It was so silly. And I felt like I was 8 years old again. I really felt like a child again, just goofing off. And I was like, oh my gosh, this connection I'm having with my husband right now, this ability to make this moment and this memory is going to really be so much more profound when I look back at that memory than spending the evening drinking or spending the evening watching TV. Even those things seem so much easier in the moment. It's just this beautiful presence and awareness that we have in our lives, and this rich and deep connection we can form with the people we love, or the priorities and the passions that matter the most to us. So you will save so much time by taking a break from alcohol, and that time will really be beautifully cultivated because you're so intentional and turned on with what you can do with it. So I hope that was helpful in kind of reframing time for you. We all think we never have enough time. We all feel time poor. We all have a zillion things to do on our to-do lists. But imagine if you could make a shift where you really do feel like you have more time in your life. And like I said, for me, obviously it started ditching alcohol, but I didn't just stop there. Now I'm looking into my TV habit to even get more of that benefit. And it's not about being a saint or perfect or never relaxing or anything like that. It's more of just deciding, what do I want my days and my life to look like, and how can I cultivate that and be more intentional about creating that space for myself. So I hope that was helpful, and I love to hear from you. And if you have any questions for next week's live, you could use the form in your course to ask. This week I really had a really cool comment and question about how time is really expanding when you're not drinking, and how much more there is to do, and just time for yourself, time to just think, time to just breathe, time to just dream. It can be really juicy and a really cool benefit of taking a break from alcohol.